Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics. I'm your host, Justin Poulin. John Duke is with me. You can follow us on Twitter. Celtics Stuff Live is at CSL_tweet live. I'm at CSL_Justin, and John is at CSL_Duke. And John, it's the off season, so we're all starved for information. The good news is they're shortening things, so just got to get through a few nuggets. We're doing the show every other week until we get to media day and things really kick off. But we do have a few topics. We've got one final contract signing, so we've got another two-way player on the books. New uniforms for the Celtics with some branding on it, as well as venting. Yeah, some venting. The schedule, we know three of the 82 games, 79 remaining that we're going to hear about here probably this upcoming week. Marvin Bagley will announce his decisions for the upcoming season, where he's going to play collegiately, if at all. Junior that may be able to essentially forego his senior season by taking summer classes, although he's just as old as the rest of the incoming freshmen. And the Kyrie Irving drama gets a little bit of a boost relative to the Celtics because David Griffin throws out the possibility that the Celtics would be on Kyrie's short list. So all those things keep us motoring along with Celtic Stuff Live, but we have hit that time, I guess, in the off season where really from now until a month from now, it's information starved time, and we'll probably all convince ourselves that the Celtics are a 65-win team between now and October, right?
63, but who's counting? No. No, you're right. It's the time. We were talking about this before the show, the thing is that the summer seems to go longer and longer now with all the news and information, and then on the other end you've got they've moved the season up, so eventually they're going to overlap, I think, and I'm not sure how we're going to deal with all that. I'm sure we'll deal with it just fine, quite frankly, but it's interesting just to see how this has all evolved. And there is luckily we're at the end of that season of some, I think, certainty in terms of what the roster will be, although we'd love to have some sort of unexpected trade for, say, Anthony Davis. That would be great, but barring that,
everybody loves an unexpected Anthony Davis trade. There isn't anybody who isn't loving that. I don't care who's included in the packet.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we're at a point now where we have a good sense of who's going to be on the team. We know 3 games, and about other than that, we know this should be a playoff team. They should make a deep run in the playoffs. Other than that, there's still a lot left to be determined.
Yeah, and they've definitely made a lot of changes to essentially the structure of the preseason to allow for more international travel games. Obviously, the Celtics did Mexico, but now they're going to go over the pond. They're going to play in London on January 11th. So I have a feeling that international spread and they're really trying to get players out and about, plus reducing the number of back-to-backs. Obviously, fatigue came to be a much bigger issue outside of the media. It was almost like the media was aware of it and the players were aware of it, but you really didn't hear anybody talking about it during the regular season. This year, it was really elevated in terms of the awareness, and the league obviously responding very quickly with some changes. So they shortened the preseason. They start the season a little bit sooner. Speaking of which, as far as the schedule's related, Celtics will kick it off against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We don't know what the Cleveland roster is going to look like because that seems to be still in a little bit of flux, but they will be kicking it off against the team that they faced in the Eastern Conference Finals last spring.
That's exciting. That's going to be an exciting night. I'd love to see it in Boston, frankly, to be able to welcome Gordon Hayward to Boston, that opening night, just like in 2008 with KG. It was, I was able to go to that game, and the feeling in that arena was just stupendous. I mean, the Gordon Hayward signing is not KG. I think we all agree with that. But there's a groundswell here of feeling like, hey, we've got something here in Boston, and I think we feel like we're ready to make a run at Cleveland, make a run to the finals potentially, and to be able to do that in Boston on opening night would have been great. To have to go to Cleveland, I'm not so excited about that, to be quite honest, and especially if they move Kyrie Irving. What do you learn? They're still going to be trying to figure out their situation. Boston's still trying to figure out itself. I think
even if nothing happens
early on, no matter what.
That's right. And even if they don't make a decision on Kyrie Irving, they're still going to be figuring themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
I would also love it to be in Boston. Something tells me, though, that of the 3 games that were announced, that one probably is going to be on the road, and they were in the finals. So essentially, it's who has the clout, who got the farthest. They're the ones that get catered to, essentially. So you look at the 3 games. The Celtics get a home game on Christmas Day against the Wizards, which
first time ever,
and a little bit of bad blood between those 2 teams. Not to mention now we have twin brothers that are going to be battling against each other on Christmas. Like, that just doesn't sound fair to the family, right?
But I know.
Regardless, I think because that Christmas Day announcement, and it's a home game, and then obviously London is a home game for Philly, but nobody is actually going to be home. I think this opening night game is definitely going to be in Cleveland.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, that's, you're right. They were going to try to give Cleveland the home game no matter what. Truthfully, of all of them, I'm probably most excited about the Christmas Day game. Not because, I think there's something special about Christmas Day games. In fact, I think in the history of the Celtics playing on them really since 08, because I don't think, let's say since 08, because I think it became a thing around that time, the Christmas Day game. I don't recall there being I remember Bulls and the Lakers and Pistons and teams playing on Christmas Day, but it wasn't built up to this thing that it is now, and I think that this in the modern day incarnation of the Christmas Day games, we have multiple games and everything's going, and they try to make it the marquee matchup for the NBA on that day. This is really the first time that I can recall, or I should say, all the times the Celtics have been involved prior to this, it's always been a downer, to be honest. It's always been they played the early game, or they played, when they played the Lakers that year. It was not the best of competition. It just seems like it's a weird day. So that one's always hard for me, but I feel like it being Washington, Boopgate, the whole thing. Those teams don't like each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people are going to be, with family, probably boozing up by that point in time. And by the time you get to 5 o'clock and that game tips off, all bets are off. And the Marcus and Markieff Morris's families and all of our families, they're all going to be maybe coming to blows by that point in time of the night.
Well, who really knows? You could almost see maybe they've set aside their No, that won't happen.
No.
So I think what's so bizarre about it to me, one unfortunate thing for me, is the fact that even though I live in Pennsylvania, the Wizards are a blackout date for me. Oh. So I will not be able to watch this game on League Pass. And even then you think
even if it's away?
Yeah, no, it's blackout if it's in market for either team. But it's ridiculous that we skip over the entire state of Maryland and go about 30 miles into Pennsylvania, and that's still a blackout date.
It's not blacked out.
Oh, you're right. I will be able to see it.
Yes. There you go.
Thank goodness. Because all the Philly games and all of the Wizards games, I get doubly, banged on that because I get both. That's just not fair. It's not fair.
And now that the Phillies,
but you're right. ABC. How did I forget?
Well, I know, but even still, that's a huge bummer right there to have to deal with that. And now that Philly's actually good, and the Washington Wizards are kind of, a rival of sorts. Not a real rival, but a rival of sorts. That's a real bummer.
The youth rival. We have the veteran rivalry is Cleveland, and the youth rival is sort of Philadelphia, the up and coming group, and we'll see how that, because Simmons and Brown, and so the whole Tatum and Fultz, it's all there. The makings of a future rivalry once Philly really takes off. The signing of Redick for them also, I think, will will be a nice one. I think that'll space the
Yeah.
floor a little bit, and if they can keep their players healthy, you can see them not being dangerous, but maybe dangerous on any given night, just not all nights of the season with the consistency that you would like to see. So I guess I don't get blacked out. The other thing I'd say, as far as like the blackout dates too, if we're talking off-season topics, that NBA League Pass app or the NBA app, I'm really hoping, I know they transferred it to a different provider this year. I'm really hoping that they make some necessary improvements over the summer and really get that, I don't want to say back to where it was, because I think there were some really good ideas for this app, but it was clunky. It didn't work well. It got a little bit better by the end of the season, but I would love to see the NBA also take care of the fan base that isn't necessarily in their home market or is willing to pay to see other teams, and really smooth that out, that whole live streaming thing. And the other thing that I did was that I went to an unlimited data plan with Verizon. So everything I stream to my phone is 100%, like, I don't have to worry about data. So I can play it on the road, in the air, wherever. I don't have to worry about it. That was a big move. Like, even with Netflix for me, something I did over the summer, really didn't bump up my bill all that much. So
Cool.
I definitely need that NBA mobile app to stream proper for me. So we'll see.
Proper.
We'll see. Proper. It needs to be proper.
Gotcha.
That's like an 80s rap. I'm just gonna say.
know.
If we're throwing back, I mean, really, we have a lot of time to kill on these shows in the off season. But last week we're talking about 8-track tapes and there it is, VHS.
I have a VHS tape right here, kids. Hey, YouTube. This is called a VHS tape right here. Anyway.
But you were just waiting for that. I just want everybody to know it's not scripted that you had a VHS tape right on
comic.
That's great. That's great. All right, so I think we kind of got through all of the scheduling. I'll really quickly remind everybody that you can follow the entire CLNS Media Network at CLNS Media on Twitter, on Facebook, facebook.com/CLNS fans. Download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace, and you're going to see us on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/CLNS Media for high definition, full-length locker room interviews. And not too long from now, we'll get the Garden Report as well. The Celtics Roundtable just doing a killer job. And I also like B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick. That's been exciting. Not only during the season, but the offseason has been excellent. So lots of good content on the YouTube channel. Let's talk about, I don't know, let's go to uniforms, because this is kind of a big change, and I'm not so much talking about the design of the uniforms, but that GE logo, and now we have the Nike swoosh, is definitely adding, I was going to say character. I'm not sure that that's the right word, John, but it's adding something to the uniforms.
Yeah, okay, a couple things. I'm pretty excited about the Nike uniforms. I think that Adidas brought the sleeve jerseys to us. So let's start there. That's an abomination. Okay, so the sleeve jerseys, they're out, they're gone. So that's the best part of the Nike deal. 2, Nike's going to make some good stuff. They're going to make quality stuff. They're going to bring the most up-to-date fabrics, and that stuff does matter. We're now in this sports science world. Fabrics and the things you wear impact how you play. And so as much
and just to jump on that, the whole fatigue conversation.
Yes.
If they're overheating because of the uniforms, that will definitely contribute to fatigue.
Absolutely. So it all matters. All of that stuff matters. And then the other piece of it is, of course, now it's the logos, right? And that's the one thing everyone sees. Everyone's going to notice that. Nike swoosh doesn't bother me at all. Okay. And I'd say probably 80% of all the logos, maybe even higher, that I've seen on the other shoulder, not a problem. The GE logo, not so much.
It's cute. It's cute.
It's like, it's huge.
It's so cute.
It's a lot of things. None of them are cute. But look, the only way I'm talking myself into the GE logo is that there is apparently some tie between GE's sponsorship of the team, which is coming with GE's move to Boston, which is a big deal, but also that GE is going to partner with the Celtics and have them part of, in terms of how they build this new sports science environment. And it seems like they're kind of, this is a way for Celtics to get some innovation, perhaps, on the court, off the court. And so, listen, I can deal with a stupid logo if it means the Celtics are going to be better, or they're going to heal faster, or they're going to play better, or any of those things. I can get over the stupid logo for that. But what I would say is, really, of all the logos, that's the one that probably stands out the most. And I don't know if it's because we all love the Celtics and we all love the way the classic look of that Celtics uniform is, but that splotch. Blotch on their upper left shoulder is tough.
It has everything to do with the shape of the logo and the size of it and the styling of it, because I will tell you, the Nike swoosh would have gone unnoticed were it on its own, on pants. And it's also a brand that you see commonly, like if you had the Under Armour logo, it would sort of blend in because you see it in people's apparel on a regular or daily basis. The GE logo is just not something you see on people's clothing.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We're used to it by looking at all the different, leagues out there that are, kind of out there doing their thing. I mean, whether it's soccer or football or they all have some sort of way to look at these. I will say probably the Harley Davidson logo just seems weird. On the Bucks logo, that's one that's a little bit outside, but
let's also agree that Harley is pretty freaking cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean, Harley's cool. So like when you think about GE, and I'm not trying to put GE down at all, don't get me wrong, but when you talk about like sports, it just it's weird. But they do have a healthcare division. They are big in healthcare. So when you talk about the sports science piece, it is definitely a fit. And so all of that makes sense. But like, if you're talking about from the fans' perspective, like Harley has nothing to do with basketball, but it's pretty cool. And so that's the one thing I'll say about it. Harley is a cool brand. So if it looks awkward, you're like, yeah, but it's Harley. It's like motorcycles. When you're like, oh, the GE logo kind of looks funny. It looks kind of big. You're like, yeah, but it's GE. Okay. It's just harder to reconcile.
I think it's the colors for the Harley logo. I mean, they have that orange and black on a green and white jersey. It just doesn't jive. And like you were saying about the GE logo, the font's different, the styling's different. So it looks like it seems a little bit ill-fitting. The Nike logo is just a simple swoosh, and just it's in and it's out. There's some other ones, the Jazz,
and it's white, so it can go against any background color. That's part of the genius of that marketing.
Yeah.
You can put it up against anything. And I will also say GE did do a good thing to help it blend, because had they stuck with their normal blue and white, it would have been a lot more like the Harley logo, right? It would have stuck out because of the color clash. And instead, and I will give GE a lot of props for this, they were willing to bend and make it green and white so that it didn't stick out on the uniforms that way or break the color blend. I don't know, whatever. They bent a little bit on the sponsorship to meet sort of the Celtics halfway. And for that, I think they deserve an enormous amount of credit.
Yes, but they won't get any over the course of the season. People, by the time we get in the games,
people will still complain.
When you sit down, and speaking of the Christmas game, you sit down with the common fan, or I shouldn't say the common fan. I would say when you sit down with the casual fan, who will mostly be family members who you will sit down, who might be sitting down and watch their first game of the season or their third game of the season, and they're going to sit there and they're going to say, "Oh, that looks awful. What's that about?" And that's that's what you're going to hear.
That looks awful.
It's awful. What are you doing? Oh my gosh. You're gonna hear it. We're all gonna hear it.
You will.
But you're right. The color makes a big difference. And I think honestly, by the time we get to a year from now, it probably won't even stand out to us nearly as much as it did.
No, we won't even notice it at all. Hey, real quick, let's go to our mid-break here. We're going to tell you about our sponsor, ZipRecruiter. It's the off season. Teams are finalizing their rosters for next year. Not Cleveland. They're not final. Having the right players on the court will be the key to success. So that sharp outside shooter or power rebounder can be the difference between winning and losing. Business isn't any different. Your company needs the right people to be the best. So where do you go to find top talent? You can't find the best candidates by posting your job on just one site. You need to get it out on all the top job sites, and now you can with ZipRecruiter. At ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites, and that's with just one click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your position, and that's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. And in fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. No more juggling your emails or calls to the office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes nationwide. And right now, our listeners can start forming their own winning team on ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. That's ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. Try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. So, John, I think the two big topics, obviously, we've alluded to Kyrie Irving quite a bit during the show, but I think the other one is really Marvin Bagley, who is going to announce on ESPN. And I find this, which way do you want to go first? Before I dive right into it, do we want to talk about Kyrie or do we want to talk about Marvin here to kick off the second half?
I think we got to go Kyrie, just because I think it's where it's going to have an impact from game one and on. So I think we got to go Kyrie.
All right, so if we're going in that, I'll kick it off because one bit of news, originally the Celtics not reported to be on one of his list of preferred teams, but since we last did a show, David Griffin has come out and said that really Kyrie is looking, and David obviously should know, right? He's had close contact with Kyrie over the last several years, and he was unceremoniously departed. I don't know how else to put that, but it definitely was awkward and met
canned.
Canned. He was canned, and it was not met with a whole lot of positivity from the players on the team either. So an unpopular decision by the front office there. So one of the things David said recently was that Kyrie's list of teams included top coaching areas, and then specifically said Pop and Brad Stevens. So we have always loved to compare Brad Stevens with Coach Greg Popovich, and we'll gladly do that. But it seems like even big competitors around the league are lumping him in with Pop as well. That's nice to hear. I don't know that I really want Kyrie Irving, but the fact that David Griffin made note of the fact that he was looking at teams with great coaching, mentioned the Celtics and put them back on the list just tells you, or actually it gives this ominous feel of the shifting power from Cleveland to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Never mind all the rumors LeBron James might head to LA next summer.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's on the horizon that I think has impacted this most of all. And people have said, well, he wanted to trade a couple of years ago and all that. Let's be honest. If there was a chance that LeBron was going to stay, I think there's a much higher chance that we don't even hear about Kyrie Irving wanting out. I think the fact that he doesn't want to be the last guy, the last rat on this sinking ship, and I think that's what we're talking about in Cleveland. You know, he's gone. LeBron is gone. This is a 1-year deal right now for the Celtics to have to deal with whatever happens in Cleveland, and maybe it's even better than that because if you could find the Celtics, just picture this in your mind, if you will, 2010. 2010 Celtics, they're in the playoffs. The Cleveland's the best team. The Celtics are terrible in the regular season. You and I talked about it, complain about that team. They get into the playoffs. They play against Cleveland, who was just rolling that season. And LeBron James completely spits the bit. I mean, he sucks. He's terrible. That last game, he basically walk his way through it. This Garden crowd was on him. They're yelling, they're screaming. He just checks out. On his way out of the tunnel, takes his jersey off. He's done, right? Now, can't you see? Let's just picture your mind's eye. Let's say Kyrie stays. Kyrie stays, even if he stays and everything's hunky dory. Do you think LeBron has always had one eye on his way out the door? Whether it's been in Cleveland the first time, even Miami the second time when they got beat by the Spurs, he was on his way out. So if Boston gets them in a close, Eastern Conference final, you don't think LeBron's going to have his mind on that moving on his next step going to LA? I think that absolutely he will be. And so when you have that,
he already does to some degree.
Yeah.
And it's clear that these two can't coexist. But you're already taking like a real big gamble on LeBron staying because he kind of already does have one foot out the door, at least. And maybe that was a leveraging thing, and maybe that was the true precursor to all of this coming out between Kyrie and LeBron. I mean, we also heard over the last week that Kyrie didn't talk to people on the team for several days. Now, when they say didn't talk to people, it's not very specific. So it makes you wonder if he has conflict with more than one person. Maybe it's not just this isn't going the way I expected it to with LeBron. You guys, I started to turn this thing around. I was the man. Now LeBron's here and he really does run the show. So I guess we don't need David Griffin and that all of that nonsense. And so I still think that if I'm the team, it's such a rock and a hard place. You can't get rid of LeBron. It'd be this huge mistake. You did this whole, but at the same time, if you don't get rid of LeBron, you're in this situation with Kyrie, and I don't think the team is necessarily. Not only have they not handled this in a way that would probably be to Kyrie's liking, and I'm sure they're trying, but I'm just not sure that Kyrie's even going to come around, even if LeBron did leave and they said, no, really, the keys are yours. Here you go. It's back to you, Kyrie. Sorry about what happened. We really like you. This is a bad breakup, and being forced to be in this situation, I think is really detrimental to the roster. And now I think, I mean, it's not only can you see LeBron heading out to LA and this making it even easier for him, but can you just imagine how many times has Cleveland gone from first to worst? The Celtics
if they win the lottery next time, I swear to God, I mean, just blow the whole lottery up right there. I mean, honestly, that would I would
like the garbage pail kid, Adam Baum. That's how my head is going off right now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, I mean, just to pivot off of this Kyrie thing a bit to the Celtics involvement and to mention it. And also we should mention that later on in that same conversation on the ESPN's The Jump, he also mentioned that, Gordon Hayward. So it wasn't like an offhand comment. So clearly there was by two different mentions of the Celtics. Specifically, the Celtics were mentioned as a team there.
And there seems to be a relationship with Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward somehow, or at least some sort of there's a reason Gordon's name was mentioned specifically. And I don't know if he's friend with the flat earth theorist or subscriber or whatever you want to say there. But I don't know if they're close or what it is, but there's definitely some intimation that those two know each other, like each other, have an appreciation for each other's game. There's something. There's something to that wasn't really detailed out. There was no follow-up question to be like, why did you say Gordon Hayward specifically, right? So that part is still a mystery.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think for the Celtics, and it's been asked, and I think a lot of people come down for different reasons on this, but the idea of, do you trade for Kyrie Irving? And for me, it comes down to Isaiah Thomas has to be part of the deal, right? And I have too much respect and too much love, and really the numbers dictate that you really should keep Isaiah Thomas.
The difference isn't huge. If Kyrie Irving played defense at a more than acceptable level, then this conversation would be more than, or this trade debate or whatever would be more acceptable to you and I and the people that are faithful to Isaiah for coming in and just really helping the club take a big jump at a stage where they really shouldn't have been ready to do that. So we would be much more, because of the hip and because of the size, if Kyrie Irving was an impactor at even again, more than acceptable level on defense, this would be a different conversation. But I think because he's not, because you can look at the stats and say it's not really an upgrade, there is a reduction in age, so there is that element. But you know, I feel like the trade-off is the reduction in age versus like the dude really thinks the earth is flat. Like that right there is a wash. I'm sorry, I can't get over it. I just do not understand that.
I think he's trolling everybody. He's a smart guy. Like, I really don't think he.
Oh, you think he's just playing us?
I think he's screwing with everybody. I think this is like Rondo going to Florida.
And he should just roll out the flat Earth brand, right? Yeah. Like he should. I mean, if LeVar Ball could do, you know, big baller brand, then why can't he have the flat? You know, and I mean, it would be like the easiest logo. It'd be like a line. You know, you want to talk about being able to integrate like the swoosh, just a flat line.
If Nike can't integrate the flat Earth into the Kyrie 4, they're missing out. I gotta tell you.
The slogan right underneath the line is "Columbus sucks."
Like, that makes sure it's not Columbus, Ohio, though. Depends upon.
Oh yeah, you're right. That could be. Well, not if he. No, because then he's just doing the, you know, the antagonistic thing. Like, you think he's playing us, right? But the minute he gets traded somewhere else, Columbus sucks could have a double meaning, and that would be perfect for the brand.
Who knows?
I'm the bad guy now. LeBron figured out how to be a bad guy, but it took him until he was 30. You know, here I am in my mid-20s, and I've got being a bad guy down to a science.
Absolutely. No, I think that he's. I would trade for him if I were the Celtics, if the hip was bad, and that's the thing. I think that we're still not.
Only they know,
and only they know, and it seems like, you know, you were the first one to scare me about the hip, to be honest. And so once I
freaked you out, or just because I kind of didn't let it go for a couple of weeks?
No, because you told me, like, you were telling me, for those who are new to the show, Justin, in a past life, was a medical professional and knows a thing or two about the human body and how bad things can happen to hips, and not specifically hips, but in this case, hips were important. And so we were talking about it, and just saying, you were just saying how, the hip is. My only, kind of knowledge of the hip is, one, Bo Jackson, okay, and two, just every old person that breaks their hip dies shortly thereafter. So he's not that old.
I don't think the statistics would bear that out, but I can understand how that's it's dangerous. There's no doubt it is a dangerous injury for people with fragile bones in their elder years. But I'm sorry I scared you. I think the scary part for me is the lacking details. That was why there was such a wide range of possibilities. Now, I know he said he's going to rehab it. Seems like he's playing on it now and without restrictions. So that's extremely, extremely encouraging. And I will also say, if you can avoid surgery, you probably should. If there's a way to rehab, any injury without having to do surgery, no problem. My biggest concern is, because we don't know what the injury is, can it reoccur? I mean, think about how many times he goes to the floor in a season. And while Gordon Hayward should help with the scoring load and whatnot, it's still a big part of Isaiah Thomas's game and effectiveness. Yep. You can't take that away. The man is going to hit the floor this season for sure. Bank on it. And with that in mind, if there's a chance that he can re-injure it and then he's out for extended periods of time, that scares me. And then especially if him going to the floor does wind up him needing surgery, I really don't think you're going to end up seeing him play. But there's a wide, and this, again, there's just such a wide range of possibilities when the only information we have is hip injury. So, the only reason I thought it was serious was because they mentioned that he was contemplating surgery. So it's got to be serious enough that it might be treated with surgery, but again, it could be minor surgery. It could have been a laparoscopic surgery for all I know.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And the other kind of piece of this is that with the new medical staff, or the new training staff, I should say, sports science, and so it adds quite a bit more mystery in this mix, because we started, certainly with the old reliable and the guys we knew and the way that they had operated for years and years and years. And now we're really entering a brave new world with a lot of this. And in fact, I saw a photo the other day of him working out with the Celtics' new trainer, Art Horn. So there's clearly some things that are already going in place to try to get him on whatever this new system is that they're going to be using. We just don't know a whole lot of details about what that is. I hope there'll be an opportunity sometime between now and the start of training camp where the Celtics will roll some of this out at least. But it seems like a lot of sports science stuff generally across the league isn't talked about, because I think teams feel like that's the place where they can get an edge. It's very hard to get an edge in terms of the money and the CBA. Everyone knows what's available on Synergy and the different Sport View and all the different apps
data
available.
The data heads have been satisfied, right? They whatever they're willing to track, they can have. Yep, absolutely.
And they can't track this stuff because of it's their people's medical information. So this is where they can get a better handle on situation than their competitors can. And the Celtics, being a forward-thinking organization, very progressive organization, and now having this new GE situation and the new training center that's going to be open next fall. They've got everything kind of lined up to really make a major shift. The problem is the franchise player has a bad hip, and we're not really sure exactly how this is going to play out. Hopefully it's a good
they could potentially grab some data and just blind, the identity. However, because there's a small population, it would be hard for somebody to look at something as a physician and if it was tagged to a team or a season. So if they were to collect that health data, and they would have to put that obviously in the contract if they wanted to start advancing that to another level, they'd probably have to take it over several years. They'd have to blind it. They'd have to, it's all about setting up the data to collect the right information so that when you mine it, it makes sense. And they might even be able to do something partnership wise with multiple different sports with similar types of injuries. And then if they could measure objective things like, running the 50, or you see what I'm getting at? Like, is there at the 12-month mark, here are the things that we want to assess to see, what kind of a drop off there is with this type of injury and this type of treatment. So I think, and they may already be doing some of that. It's just to what degree and, how well they protect people's identity. Listen, we got about 7 minutes left. We have to talk about Marvin Bagley. We look at this draft class that's coming. It is really, really, really strong already. We have Michael Porter, Mohamed Bamba. Those are two taller players. DeAndre Ayton. They're taller players. Really, Bamba and Ayton are the ones that would be playing the center role that I think everybody wants to see the Celtics go out and get. We're hoping that we do have a player already in our midst with Zizic potentially playing that, but certainly some depth. And I don't think as much as I'm encouraged and excited about seeing Zizic, I'm not sure that he's at the Bamba Ayton level. And that's where really this upcoming season, but that's two solid centers. And you and I know how coveted centers have been. It's just the type of center, the profile for the NBA's center has changed quite a lot in the last 15 years. But Bagley is 6'10", 6'11", same age as the other incoming freshman, is about to make a decision on if he's going to commit to playing college ball and then ultimately will elect for the draft. But that puts three legit center position players or power forward centers on the taller side towards 7 feet in this draft that are probably in the top at least 5, if not top 6. You got to like the Celtics' chances of grabbing one of those players unless they go 1, 2, 3. And even then, you have to like the Celtics' chances of being able to pick in the top 3 of this draft.
Well, that's you're right. That's the thing, right? So you got 2 shots at it, likely. I think likely. I don't think the Lakers. The first thing you got to talk about is the fact I don't think the Nets or the Lakers have gotten tremendously better to the point where they're still not going to be among the worst five teams in the league. I think they're still going to be in that mix. I think the Nets, yes, they added it a little bit. That helps. The Lakers had it a little bit. That helps. but they're still not
And
tremendously
Philly
better.
should make at least a 10-win improvement.
Oh my God,
Just
yes.
based on
You got
Reddick and guys. I mean, even if people are still injured. So you're right. I
right.
agree. I'm not sure the Lakers and the Nets have improved that much,
No,
but then you take a team like Philly that would have been challenging Boston potentially for that last spot due to tanking
right.
and other factors and injuries, and they're really not. So that actually increases that likelihood. I agree.
Yeah, and I think the other, so you take the situation where if they're still in that mix, then you get really two shots. You got Porter, Bagley, Ayton, Bamba. Four out of the five right there. Luka Doncic being the fifth guy, probably in that mix of the top five, potential top one situation. All five could help the Celtics. Certainly, the bigs are probably the area most in need on the Celtics roster. Even with the addition of Yabusele and Zizic, it's not enough. And so you need to bolster it somewhere. You've got you've got stars on the wing, potential future stars and Brown and Tatum. Now you add your big or two bigs, because you could put an Ayton next to a Porter, or you could put a Bamba next to a Bagley. There's just it's ridiculous. But Bagley, let's talk about Bagley, because Bagley's the guy that I think is that cut above. I think right now most of the guys who are watching this, they look at Bagley top of the tier, then Porter, and then the rest of those guys. And I don't want to sleep too much on Doncic, who's had a good summer playing Slovenia. The starting point guard on Real Madrid has blown out his knee. So Doncic may be sliding over to play point guard as an 18-year-old in the ECB and EuroLeague, which is the second best leagues in the world. So if he's able to do that, he's going to rise up the charts. But Bagley
But
has that next level stuff.
how long can this team fill in at the 4 or 5 with guys that are, well, I mean,
We get
look,
two
I'm
shots
not
still,
trying to
remember?
crap on Baines or Morris, but I mean, to have a not maybe not quite as good as Embiid by any means, but maybe a player that when you match up against Philly in the future could at least give Embiid a little bit of a run for his money would be a really essential piece of the puzzle for the long
Right.
term.
Well, you get two shots. So even if you add one, again, it's not traditional bigs. So you're not playing two guys next to each other, you're traditional bigs. If you got a Porter, you aren't, what I'm saying is you wouldn't take Bamba and Ayton. Those are two traditional bigs, center style players. You can put Porter and Ayton next together. You can put Bamba and Bagley, different categories, right? To get an Ayton and a bomb or a Bamba and get one of the other three is probably the ideal, because it allows you to kind of check all the boxes in kind of a traditional, fill your areas of need mix. But we know Danny doesn't do that. He picks the best player available, even in the situation of Tatum. So even if 2K doesn't understand that, so I think that Bagley, though, he's a guy people have been watching since he's 15 years old. And you brought up the idea, the name of LeBron, and LeBron being a guy people watch forever and ever and ever. I don't think he's at that like supernova level, but he's certainly at that next tier below in terms of what people have been looking at. I'm not sure he's going to be that type of player in college. It's way too early. We heard similar things about Harry Giles a year ago. We heard things about Shabazz Muhammad 3, 4, 5 years ago. The names at this point don't matter a whole lot until they get into the college game. If Bagley goes to Duke, which I think he's going to because I'm a Duke fan, and if he goes there and they win a national championship, he's going to be the number one player, and the hype's going to be ridiculous. But the same's true if he goes to UCLA or even maybe USC, probably as a lesser level. He's got a chance to be special, I think. But I think again, it's one of those situations. Porter and Ayton, Celtics can't lose. But if they got a guy like Bagley, he's not a Fultz, Tatum type of star where it seems like a pretty good chance they'll be good. This is like almost lock of the day that this guy's going to be a star. That's the type of role where Bagley is, which is, you can probably list the number of guys in the last 15 years who have been that. Probably Dwight Howard, LeBron, Anthony Davis, maybe.
Well, yeah, Anthony Davis, and then you have players like We ran out of audio, so I'm going to have to splice that back in.
Okay.
So hold on a second.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Greg Oden. That's where I'm going.
Oden.
Then you have players like, so that's how I'm going to come in. This is recording, so whoever's doing the audio, the production, that's how we're going to do it. All right, here we go.
Yep.
And then you have players like Greg Oden, who really was slotted as being just as, I mean, look at Kevin Durant. Pretty transcendent player, right? One of the top. He just had one injury kind of down year, but other than that, he's really been dominant. Greg Oden was supposed to be the same way, speaking of leg injuries. And, you know, here's a guy that didn't quite make it. But you're right. There's only so many that people have been watching since a young age who could, you know, be at that LeBron level. It just seems weird to me, and I don't want to take this like down a crazy path, but it like the whole ESPN like announcing it thing is just awkward, and not mention in this scenario it's recycled.
Yeah, well, they do it for colleges. I mean, which college you're going to go to? I mean, oh my God, signing day for college football. I mean, that's just a whole nother level, you know. So the fact that it's not as crazy as it sounds. I think the fact that not only is he going from being a high school senior to college, you know, he's going from a high school junior to freshman in college in like
and they usually announce a lot earlier, and all of a sudden there's like this last minute push. Let's get him into summer classes and let's do it. It's unprecedented in terms of its timing around when recruits tend to make their, you know, announcement of where they're committed to playing, and it's definitely nuanced, but I still think it's a little awkward. I'll give him a pass. I mean, you know what? If you live up to the hype, look at Cleveland, right? He did the decision on TV. He goes to Miami, so he spurns him, and yet they still welcome him with open arms. So if the Celtics get the #1 pick next year and it's Marvin Bagley, it's certainly, I'm not going to remember this conversation or tonight's announcement on ESPN and go, no, forget it. I don't want it. No, it's a little bit different. You know, I'm not putting it into flat earth category, right? I'm not holding that against anybody. As I'm saying.
No, I think that's fair. It's a weird thing, but look, if for the Celtics, there is nothing better than having as many talented players in the 2018 draft as possible. Whether they take them or not, it's the best thing possible. Because if the Pelicans think they can get 2 of these guys and that changes their franchise, that may be a best thing going.
That is a fantastic point. That may be what can actually get the deal done, if that's where the organization is at that point. It's hard. There's just too much conversation going on. The smoke, where there's smoke, there's fire type of deal. I think it's definitely in play here. So you're right. That ought to entice a team. And once again, they'd have to wait and see where the picks land. Do they come to fruition? You know, the whole, is it going to wind up being Sacramento's next year type of thing? So we'll work through all of that and we'll see. And it could be a big trade chip for certain. But the other piece of this conversation, the reason you would want to trade those 2 for an Anthony Davis, or why you would want to utilize those picks and have a number of good big men available, is of all the players that are integral to this team's success right now, there's only one that's older, and it's Al Horford, and we're already thin in that front court. So this is a dream draft for the Celtics. And once again, I don't think they're going to feel any urgency to make a deal for anybody other than Anthony Davis with these picks. Otherwise, they're going to go the Tatum route. They're just going to go ahead and make that pick. They're going to go the Jaylen Brown route. They're going to go ahead and make that selection without even feeling bad about it, or no hesitation. They'll just continue on the course. And quite frankly, I'm fine with that too. Obviously, I'm willing to make that move for Anthony Davis because he's young. Hayward's young. Like, this team is still young. And you definitely going to keep a couple of players. If you're trading away 2 top 5 picks or top 4 picks, top 3 picks, whatever it is, in a loaded draft, if you're trading that away, you don't have to throw in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and, you know, everybody else on the roster that's young to get the deal done. You can actually keep some of these players that will grow into roles. And I also like the Celtics' chances of balancing the roster with, the trade / the picks, like, because they can do any kind of mix. Like if all of a sudden, New Orleans says, well, there's only one player in this draft we really have our heart set on, but we do want a Jaylen Brown, or we do want Jason Tatum in addition to that, because now we've got a player that's got a year under their belt, and we'll just accelerate that, and we have a pretty good idea of what they're going to look like against the rest of the NBA. I still feel like the Celtics could do that without, really harming their plan for the future. That makes the Anthony Davis potential trade is one that really fits into that. We want to win now, but we also want to make sure we're taking care of the future.
That's right, because he fits with both ends. He's so good now. He can play with the older players, but he's so young and he's signed for so long that he actually can still play through with whoever's left of the young players, whether it's Tatum or Brown or any of those guys. Baselli. I think there's a lot of opportunities for those guys there. I think it's a great situation, and now we just need the Pelicans to understand that and make the deal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. The broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in. And remember, you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love a rating and a review because your feedback is important to our show. And a quick reminder that today's show was brought to you by ZipRecruiter.com. They've got a great deal for all of you listeners, but most importantly, you would be supporting our show and the entire network. For staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtic Stuff Live.
Celtic Stuff Live.
Still talk.